Senior living operators face a complex set of challenges. How do you stay ahead of the pack? Listen in to From Leads to Leases, a CCR Growth podcast for expert solutions that transform problems into opportunities. And maybe someday soon you'll partner with us to generate $1.5 million and up in additional revenue per community in just 12 months. Welcome back to From Leads to Leases, the podcast where we cut through the industry noise and bring you actionable insights into senior living marketing, sales, and growth. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. And today we have an incredible episode lined up. We're diving into the intersection of aromatherapy and dementia care with our special guest, Andrea Jetser. Andrea is an expert in aromatherapy with over 20 years of experience. She applies her unique skill set to dementia care worldwide. So this is a unique situation for us. We've never had a guest on who hasn't been to the United States and who offers this unique global perspective on the field. So her work in Switzerland, Australia, and Indonesia has shown how powerful aromatherapy can be. And my hope is that we can empower and educate some providers here in the States to apply some of these strategies to their communities. So aromatherapy, when used properly, can help those suffering from dementia. So we'll explore her journey, the benefits of aromatherapy, and how senior living providers might leverage this innovative approach to care. So in today's episode, we'll discuss the impact of aromatherapy on dementia behaviors. We'll hear some of Andrea's personal stories that inspired her to focus on this field. We'll also get a unique perspective on how dementia care is handled outside of the United States and how communities might take a page out of her book to improve their own practices. So let's dive in. So welcome to the show, Andrea, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to have this conversation. This is, as soon as we caught your page on Instagram, we were instantly very interested in this particular modality just because it's not something you typically hear about. And I think any kind of alternative practice when it comes to helping people deal with the effects of dementia and can just help alleviate some of those stressors for someone, I think that's pretty awesome. So
Absolutely,
I'm pretty excited to learn more about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your background is incredibly unique. You've worked in Switzerland, Australia, now Indonesia. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up specializing in aromatherapy and dementia care?
Yeah, look, aromatherapy for me was very early on, was fascinating. I loved the impact of smell, all around, what that does for you. You know, because it's such a holistic approach, aromatherapy, and even just putting a bunch of flowers on the table, you smell your flowers in the kitchen in the morning, it's aromatherapy. You know, there are so many ways, so many beautiful ways to apply it. And so I was always drawn to that. And then did my studies and became qualified in aromatherapy. And then I sort of did other things and started working in aged care, and I started to work in a daycare center for people with dementia, and which was quite separate from aromatherapy at the time. But just naturally, I started to bring aromatherapy into this field, which then made it really powerful, really beautiful. It started small and it grew and more, and there was just such positive response from people, and not just the people with dementia, but also the people, the caregivers, the workers, everybody. So it just kind of grew from there.
There's something just kind of serene about aromatherapy. I use aromatherapy with acupuncture, and I know that every time I'm in a session, as soon as that component comes into the room, it almost it's like this wave of calm that just comes over the space, So I think there is something to be said about that for sure. And I can see how that would help someone with dementia and just helping to calm them or or bring them back to a specific place and time. Like there's all different aspects that I could see that benefiting them.
It's about bringing a balance in for the
Mm-hmm.
person. You know, if they are aggressive, like what you said, calming them down, it's very calming. But if somebody suffers from depression, for example, or they're really sad, and then you can apply aromatherapy for them to be more uplifting. It's about balance, which I think is the absolute beauty of it. Whatever is needed, that's what it brings.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense too. A lot of people use medication, right, to kind of like chemically balance their system out if they're deficient in something. So it would make sense that this, while only temporary, it still will alleviate some of those things that are coming up in someone's space and help kind of balance them out in the moment, which I think most people need help finding balance on some level, right? Like they're
I
off in
agree.
some area of their life. So if you can just bring a little center them just for a little while, that can be pretty powerful. So because a lot of our listeners are based in the US, how do other countries approach dementia care? And what do you observe in other countries? I don't think many of our listeners are even aware of how other countries handle, care of our older population.
Yeah. I find, well, I can mostly talk about Indonesia, it
Hmm.
being a very, very individual based. This whole idea of homes, care homes for people does not actually really exist as much. It's starting to come a little bit in the cities, but it's not overall, it's not really happening. It's still very, very family based, which has a real beauty. It's really, really beautiful how, the children, they grow up, they know they're going to look after their parents no matter what's going to happen. And that's going to be like until the end, no matter what. And, but I think it is something that is no longer possible in Western countries like Australia or probably America as well. People are busy. People are like just whole life, the whole community, everything has changed so greatly. And that is just not always realistic anymore these days.
Yeah.
But in Indonesia, I still see that, and it is very, very beautiful. It leaves, there's pros and cons in everything, right? So I think like within families, looking after family, it's a lot about the personal approach that people take. And, you hear about elder abuse and all of that, which you hear from everywhere, not just
Sure.
in
Sure.
home, in people's homes. But I think those are all things that need to be looked at. But there's certainly a big, big difference in that when it comes to that. What's the trend in America? Can you tell me what is the trend for people when they suffer from dementia or like elderly people? What's the trend these
I
days
think,
in America?
yeah, I mean, I think most people would probably have the mindset of if I have a loved one who's suffering from some type of dementia, that I'm going to have to find a facility for them. And most of the reason behind that is the at-home care options are so costly that, and even, I mean, it's not to say the facilities aren't as expensive. Like if you put your loved one into a memory care community that didn't take insurance, for example, depending on where you live, it could be anywhere from $6,000, $8,000 a month up to $12,000 or $14,000 a month. It just really depends on where you live. So, not many families can afford that. I mean, that's like two or three
It's huge.
mortgages they're having to pay a month now just to have their loved one looked after. But at home care is even more expensive. So there's a lot of families that are struggling with that right now, trying to figure out how am I to do this. My generation, they call us like the sandwich generation. We have like younger kids, and then but we also have aging parents, and so now we're taking care of them, figuring out what's going to be the best thing for them, as well as taking care of our own kids. And I think because of that, there's a lot more people that are looking to facilities to handle the care of their aging parent rather than them taking it on themselves. So you don't see as many multi-generational homes here in America as you do in other countries. And I've watched several documentaries about that, and I think one was called like Live to 100 and on Netflix, and they focus I think like on 5 different areas across the world, and they were looking at like these clusters of centenarians, like people who have reached the age of 100 or older, and they were like, okay, what's the secret, what's the common thread between all these areas? And most of them, it was the family aspect, it was the
Mm,
community aspect, it was the fact that they weren't like taking their loved one and putting them into a place where they didn't know anyone, they didn't have that sense of belonging anymore. It was they were integrated, they were part of a family, they were still doing all the things that they love to do. And I think that gets to be challenging. Like you said, people live busy lives. And so, on the flip side of that, in a country like Indonesia, I mean, what happens if someone does have dementia? I mean, does the family still, are they still responsible for taking care of that loved one, or did they bring in help to assist with that person?
it's very much the family that is responsible. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't even even at the best of circumstances, they live in their compounds as families. The parents, they have their children and they grow up, and within the compound they build their little home, and so they all stay together, no matter even at the best of times. And then as the parents grow older, it just becomes natural. It's just normal. There's a lot more of the mother stays home and looks after the children. And the way I know it to be from when or even before I was a kid, like in Switzerland, and you had your farmhouse where the the head of the farm was living with wife and children. And then they grow older, the parents grow older, the children take over, and they have this extra little house built next to it where the old people go, and the parents, the grandparents. But they remain part of this family unit, which is beautiful. And I really get that as an example with my dad. My dad was in the home, and I wasn't, I lived on the other side of the world, so I wasn't really available for him anyway, but other family members were there. And for him, he knew his home, he knew his environment. It's a small town, and, he's lived there for many, 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 many years. And
Sure.
so he knew everybody, had his routines. Um, and then he came into the home, and his, with his dementia and his deterioration was like, it was so quick. It was unbelievable how quickly things just fell apart. And, I question, because he held on for so long, and he kept going for so long. And then, yes, supports came into the house, but he still kept going for so long. And then once a decision was made, because he had an accident, he had a fall, and he went to hospital. And then in hospital, he got really, really confused. And the decision was made, he can't go back home by himself. So he went into a care home. And the speed of deterioration was just absolutely incredible. And I still wonder whether how it would have been if he had been home in his house with us, like, the people around him caring for him, maybe bring external help in as well, that with personal care or whatever. I still wonder whether it would have been gone more like this than like this. No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a really good point. I mean, I've experienced with my grandmother, she had dementia and she went to a nursing home, and it was a pretty fast process for her. I mean, I think within a year, she fell and broke her hip. That's how it all started. And when older adults, there's a lot of falls and things like that. It's usually a sign that there's something else going on, and it's usually a key indicator for dementia or some level of cognitive decline. So she ended up in a nursing home, and it was probably about a year before she passed. And it was like, I mean, she went from being reasonably alert and aware of her surroundings to like, losing all motor functions and things like that. I do think being in a place like that, I don't think it necessarily helped things. It's really it's almost like hospice at that point, right? Like they're just trying to like make somebody comfortable and give them what they can to like make sure that they have some quality of life, but it's not great. And it would have been better if she would have been home. But my families are not known to be caretakers. Like that's not the role that they play, I think. And it's funny because that's actually something that I've done for my family, is that I've had family members who, like in my immediate family, who've been sick or needed support, and I've been the first person to step into that role and really like embrace it. So it might be because I grew up in a household where no one else did that now that's a role that I feel like I need to take on. But so my grandmother, I saw decline pretty fast. But then even with my grandfather, after my grandmother on my mother's side passed, my mom decided to take him in instead of putting him into a senior living community. So she took him in, and he actually declined extremely fast. So he didn't have dementia, but physically and mentally, he started to decline because he didn't have the social exposure to other people his age, to other people he could connect with and relate to. And like my parents became his only source of everything, entertainment,
Yes.
food, companionship. And I think he was really missing out and lacking. We found an assisted living community for him, and like it was like overnight. I mean, he completely changed. Like he lit up like a Christmas tree.
Really?
Like he was, he was like everybody's new favorite resident. He was
Wow.
super happy. He had found his place. So I've seen both sides of it, and I agree with you that I think like if a family is capable of taking care of their loved one, I think that's definitely a better option. But I also see communities changing here in the States anyways. I see communities changing the way that they're going about care. And it's not about filling beds and building these gigantic buildings that have like 300, 400 units and, and having one nurse per floor. Like it's not like that anymore. Like you're starting to see what are called like micro communities pop up, which are like they're small homes. It's like 6 to 10 residents that live in this one house. And so they're all extremely close. They're all super connected. They have maybe one or two skilled nurses on hand to help with any kind of issues that might come up if they do have people there who have dementia, things like that. But it's like a really tight knit community, and that feels more like family to me. So if I had to, find a place for my aging parent that wasn't in my home, I would find a situation like that. I think I would feel more comfortable. So they get a little bit more like one-on-one.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I also think what you're describing, that takes a little bit of time. So then the question is, with back to my dad as an example, maybe he should have gone into a care facility a lot sooner.
Yeah.
When he was still clearer, and he would have been able to make friends and get to know the staff and know their name, and they get to know him as well and his perks and whatever he likes or doesn't like. For them, that would have then helped later for him to be more part of the whole environment.
There's some memory care programs that have actually proven to slow the process of dementia down if it's caught early enough. So I think, but not a lot of people know what to look for. So unless somebody went to the doctor and had an examination, and the doctor noticed some things that seemed off with their cognition, it would be difficult for an everyday, especially someone who, when you see someone every day, it's like, it's almost like someone who's gaining weight, right? Like if you see someone every day, like you don't really notice that they're gaining weight. But if somebody hasn't seen you in 6 months, all of a sudden they're like, wow, like you look very different than the last time I saw you. Like, it's a different scenario. So I think it's kind of the same with cognitive decline too. You start, family members tend to just kind of like pick up the slack. Like if they notice that somebody's not, not able to get out of their chair as easily as they once did. They automatically will just help them out of the chair instead of saying, oh, maybe they shouldn't be sitting in that chair. Maybe we should get them a different chair. Or we're not really talking about mobility issues. We're talking about cognitive issues, but it's kind of the same thing where,
It
it's
is. It is.
a slow decline to the point where sometimes people just don't notice it. And like you're saying, like it was like a cliff. By the time that it was brought to your attention, it was past the point of no return. So there really wasn't anything you could do but just kind of just be there to help support, which is a really tough spot to be.
Yeah.
But
But in hindsight, like I would talk to my dad on the phone regularly. And it is only
yeah,
now that I know what he was doing. I think things were a lot worse than I ever knew or ever realized. But he had
yeah,
his spill. He would say the same thing to me. Oh, hello, how are you? And it's raining here, and the sun is shining, and da da da, and the birds are singing, whatever. He had his big spill, and then he was the one that go, oh, it was so lovely to hear from you. I'm gonna go now. See you later. Bye. And it's only in hindsight that I go, like, he probably had that all written, not actually written, but that was his script. That's what he does when the daughter calls. That's what he says. I think when you're saying you're always around, you don't really see it getting worse. But when you are not enough, when you're there not enough, you don't have the opportunities to actually really pick up on it either. So it is
yeah.
such a fine line. It is
It is
really,
a
really
fine line.
difficult.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even
Mm-hmm.
talking with my parents now, I mean, they're in their mid 70s and they live all the way across the country. I'll have a conversation with them and it's like there's specific questions they'll ask, how are you? How's the family? How's the business going? It's like the same 5, 10 questions and then it's like, okay, it was good catching up. We'll
Yeah,
chat again
yeah.
soon. And it does. It kind of feels like a script almost, like we're having the same conversation, the same check-in. Like this is the amount of information that they need to feel comfortable that they know that I'm doing okay. Or, same with me. Like these are the answers I need to hear from them to make sure that they're fine. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're getting off the topic of aromatherapy, but it's a great conversation regardless. So thank you for sharing all of that. I know we talked a little bit about like some of the benefits, but what are the most notable benefits of aromatherapy that you've seen when working with dementia patients?
I feel really the big thing is balance. It is about balancing emotions, whether that is them being on a real high, coming down, them being on a real low, coming up. It's about balance. And it's the holistic thing that I feel is so extremely powerful about it. Because if I as a caregiver apply aromatherapy for my loved one, then I also benefit from it. So it's this holistic approach, just this added, it's like a beautiful light. It's a smell and it just really does affect people. And then it's very individual. You obviously have to work out like what does somebody like, because it's like, it brings back memories. And I often use the example, if you as a child, you went to visit your grandmother on a weekly basis and she had this beautiful garden with lavender and you smelled lavender in her house. And she was a lovely lady that looked after you and hugged you and kissed you. And, it'll be an amazing memory. But if she was not nice to you and if she beat you or whatever, um, it'll be quite traumatizing if I expose you to lavender all the time. So I think
Mhm.
it is very, very individual and it needs to be. So it takes a bit of time to work that out, to work with a patient. You're going to need to get to know them and apply it slowly. Get into it slowly, not just.
As you're talking too, I was just thinking about like, oh, there's still like foods that I smell today that bring me back to my childhood, and I'm just like, when I smell it, I'm like, oh my God, that smells just like my mother's, whatever that she
Yeah.
was making, at the time. So I think it's the same thing with aromatherapy. And I think there's something to be said about people experiencing dementia and having the ability to still tap into nostalgia. And I think that's where the aromatherapy piece can really help, with that, with helping them bring back those core memories in their subconscious. And I think those are the things that when it comes to dementia, they tend to stick around the longest. So I think the fact that you're able to tap into that can be really powerful for someone in that space.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody's different, and I guess it depends which part of the brain is affected.
Yeah.
With because you also hear of cases where one of the sense of smell is one of the first things to go for people that have suffer from dementia in some form. But the good thing is the chemical profile of an essential oil, even if they can't smell it, it's still powerful. It still does its thing. Like if you do a massage, your skin is porous. The chemical components still go inside the body. So this power is still there. And if nothing else, the power on the caregiver. If I, as a caregiver, am extremely stressed and I apply aromatherapy for my loved one, and they don't really respond, not negative or positive, there's just not really a response, I respond as the caregiver. It calms me down if I'm up high. It
Yeah.
allows me to
Yeah.
create this beautiful moment with my loved one. So there is just power all around. It's magic.
Yeah. No, that's like a very symbiotic relationship where it's beneficial for everyone. So that's great. That's a really good point too, that it's not just about the patient sometimes or the client, it's also about the caregiver. When you
Exactly.
first got into the dementia space too, I mean, did you approach them? Did they approach you? How did that connection happen?
I worked in a daycare center for people with dementia, and I
Mm,
was not actually working directly with the patients. I was working as a support person for the family members, and I did the assessment. So I'd go to their home and I'd do the assessment with the people to see whether they would fit into the group, depending on the stage of dementia where they were at.
yeah.
And I had my own little office, but it was close to, the area where everybody else was. And I burned my oils because for me it's a lifestyle. I have oils around me all the time. So I burned all oils, and then conversations started to happen. A person with dementia might come in. Oh, what is this? What am I smelling? And then, you start to give him the bottle and smell that, what you think. Oh, this is that or whatever. And then, it creates this lovely conversation, really very natural. There's nothing forced. There's nothing, not saying not to take medication or anything like that. Not at all. I don't
Right.
mean that at all. But it is it's just so natural. It's this beauty of natural therapies, I think, in general. There's this gentleness to it. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah. You must have had like the calmest office space ever.
I did, and so obviously the family members, they would come and see me, and they sit
Yeah.
with me, and we'd have conversations or whatever needed discussing. But then the people with dementia, they would also come in, and then all of a sudden everybody's in my office, and it was great.
I know you've also trained some caregivers to help apply aromatherapy. Have there been instances where management has fully embraced the practice of aromatherapy? And
Yes, it has. Absolutely. I have, from working in this daycare center, I then have been contacted by aged care homes, facilities, who asked me to bring the aromatherapy to them into the facility. And I did that, and I made individual blends for patients and applied the oils, which was really beautiful. And then it was about training the staff to do that. And it was beautiful for them too, because they too got to experience aromatherapy
Mhm.
in their work environment. And with management behind it, um, they create that space because it does take time. And if you have staff and they need to run around and get, like, I don't know, 20 people out of bed in the morning and shower and whatever, they don't have time to sit and do a hand massage or whatever it is. So it does take management to stand behind their staff and go like, we're building this in. This is part of it.
Yeah.
And when that
They have to
happens,
commit to it. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So that everybody is on the same page. And when that happens, it does create so much peace. It does create so much beauty. You see?
So if they
Yeah.
were looking to integrate that into their program, I mean, what would that look like? How often would you recommend that they provide that to one of their residents? Would it be like a weekly thing, a daily thing? How would that play out?
So if they were brand new to aromatherapy but they would like to explore that, I would suggest to start slow.
Mm-hmm.
Not just dump it on everything, but start slowly because it does become a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's this balancing thing. For me, for example, Jerry, I was hate to admit it, but I was a smoker. And then when
Oh,
I
me too.
started to
Me
get,
too.
oh, really? Okay, glad.
Yeah.
I'm
Long
glad it's
time
not
ago.
just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago for me as well. But then when I started doing aromatherapy, I studied aromatherapy, and because you study it, you buy the oils and you have them around you and you start to apply it. And I never gave up smoking. It just fell away. There was just no room for smoking in my aromatic life. It was just and so in that sense, I would recommend for a facility to start slowly. Now, everybody is welcome to contact me. I am more than happy to help,
Yeah.
or give advice, or I'm open for that 100%. No matter where in the world, I'll fly there if they want me to. No problem. I think, but I still think the idea of starting slowly, for example, maybe have a burner at reception where people come in or where people walk past and see the responses, and they will be positive. People will go like, "Oh, it smells so nice here," and that's the start. And then it grows from there.
Naturally, when everybody sees the positive benefits of it, it just naturally would become an integrated part of their practice to help their residents, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
So that makes
So in
sense.
the residence where I was applying aromatherapy, trained the staff and had management behind me, it was really part of life for the patients every day, all day long.
No, that's great that it actually is an all day practice, right? It doesn't just have to be this one thing they do that they take time out of the day for. So
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
a senior living provider wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out and keep this conversation going with you?
I think the best way is through my Instagram account.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's the
uh,
dementia underscore letting underscore go, right? Did I get that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to thank Andrea Jetser for sharing her unique and valuable insights into aromatherapy and dementia care, and just thank you for such a wonderful conversation and sharing some insights about your thoughts about the senior care industry, as well as your personal stories about your family and how that's impacted you. I think that was really great. And I appreciate you being so authentic and raw with that.
Absolute pleasure. And I really am. I
Yeah,
just am so very passionate about aromatherapy that I'm
yeah,
just like, oh, I just want to bring it there and yeah, and let everybody
yeah,
enjoy it. It is no big deal.
yeah.
Through my Instagram account, you can order some oils. That's there in my bio. Oils can be ordered. People can contact me if they need to, for any advice or any information. I am more than happy to work with anyone. And a book will come out soon.
Oh, that's exciting.
I
That's
know.
exciting.
I know.
You'll
I'm
you'll have to
working on it. So
keep us in the loop. So I'm excited about that. We'll get the word out. There's a lot of communities that are integrating new techniques all the time to help their memory care patients find peace, balance, to recenter themselves. And I think that aromatherapy is a great way to do that. So I do think this is something that people will come back to time and time again. It's pretty obvious how passionate you are about this. So I'm hoping that our audience does reach out to you as the expert in this space. So I think that'll be great.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is something very powerful that can be done with very little.
It's inspiring to hear how you're able to utilize these natural methods to enhance the quality of life for those living with dementia while also bringing this global perspective to the conversation. So if our audience wants to stay connected with Andrea and learn more about her work in dementia care, be sure to check out her platform at Dementia, The Journey, and following her on Instagram at dementia_letting_go. So dementia letting go. And again, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And as always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the dynamic world of senior living marketing and sales. And also, this is a reminder that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience. We're also a video podcast. So if you want to see versions of our episodes like this great one with Andrea, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify channels. So I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, thanking you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, where we're giving you all of these great senior living industry insights for free and asking nothing in return other than for you to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm truly grateful for your time and attention. And until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in. Explore more at ccrgrowth.com. At CCR Growth, we've developed the Senior Growth Innovation Suite to unlock an additional $1.5 million and up in revenue per senior living community within a year. We specialize in generating quality leads, expediting sales, and reducing acquisition costs. Let's connect soon.